Biological warfare. The weapons once present in the United States arsenal, their very existence threatened modern society as we knew it. However, biological warfare has not disappeared. As late as the 1980s, America's only rival, the once mighty Soviet Union, was our only worry. But the United States' modern enemies are more numerous and elusive than communist Russia. Once unleashed, there is no stopping biological warfare's destructive flow of deadly viruses. And the world has a greater risk today than ever before. Ever since it began, the United States biological warfare program has forever changed modern society. The American biological warfare program can be tracked over a period of 70 years, going through phases of development, deployment, and impact. During the 1940s, in the midst of World War II, the United States began developing a biological warfare program poised to become one of the most advanced worldwide. At the end of World War II, leaders of the infamous Unit 731 in Japan were in U.S. custody. The U.S. government brokered a deal with Unit 731 leaders. In exchange for the knowledge gained through their experiments, Unit 731 leaders will be granted immunity against war crimes prosecution. The U.S. began to study biological weapons at Fort Detrick in 1942. Diseases examined included anthrax, botulism, Q fever, etc. Biological weapons were produced at Arkansas and Colorado facilities. Although about 5,000 bombs filled with anthrax spores made at Fort Detrick were made during the 1940s, the absence of adequate safety measures precluded large-scale biological weapons manufacturing during World War II. From the 1950s through the 1960s, the United States Army deployed biological warfare capabilities throughout the world, often with unintended consequences. Biological weapons airborne release is well documented to be dangerous. The U.S. Army conducted a study in 1951 through 1952 called Operation Sea Spray to study wind currents that could carry biological weapons. Balloons filled with Serratia marcescens were exploded over San Francisco. Cases of pneumonia and urinary tract infection greatly increased shortly thereafter. In 1969, the Army announced that 23 U.S. soldiers and 1 U.S. civilian had been exposed to sarin nerve agent on the Japanese island of Okinawa while cleaning sarin-filled bombs. The incident created international concerns and revealed that the Army had secretly positioned chemical munitions in Southeast Asia. In 1969, the U.S. military carried out a large field test in the Pacific, involving fleets of ships, caged animals, and the release of deadly agents. It proved U.S. biological weapons' effectiveness. Unbeknownst to Americans, though, were nearby Soviet spies collecting samples of the biological agents used. The American biological warfare program has greatly impacted society. In 1972, over 100 nations, including the United States and the Soviet Union, signed the Biological and Toxic Weapons Convention, BWC, banning weapons of biological and toxic agents worldwide. Save for peaceful purposes, though, there are still no clear procedures for enforcing the BWC. Dr. Thomas Welch, a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense as of 1988, said more than half of the nations on the biological weapons list that signed the BWC agreement, that some of those nations were listed by the State Department as supporters of international terrorism. Today, the U.S. biological weapons goal set by President Barack Obama is to monitor the scientific community against creating harmful biological agents. Only time can tell what will happen next.
Like our allies, the United States responded to the perceived threats from Germany and Japan. In 1943, we began an offensive biological program with a modest research and development facility at Camp Detrick, which is now Fort Detrick, Maryland. By the end of the program, we had weaponized a total of 7 incapacitating or lethal human agents, including anthrax. In 1969, Richard Nixon renounced the use of biological weapons for the United States.
I have decided that the United States of America will renounce the use of any form of deadly biological weapons that either kill or incapacitate.
President Nixon visited Fort Detrick on the 25th of November, 1969. I remember that date quite well. because following his announcement of taking munitions and beating them to plowsheds, we all lost our job. And that was a very traumatic experience. But following his presidential announcement on this date, the entire United States offensive program on biological warfare came to a close within 2 years. We destroyed all of our seed stocks. We destroyed all of our production material at Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And we completely got out of the biological warfare business.